So what is the connection between the Colorado River toad, psychedelics, this mysterious healing power, genomic mapping, and Mr. Timothy Harvey? My name's Jai Wilson. I'm here with Salt Spring Life, and I'm joined with father, entrepreneur, islander, a good friend, and toad steward, Tim. How are you today, man?
Thank you, Jai. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to have you here to chat about these toads.
I'm excited. I really appreciate the time, and I just want to dive right in because I'm super fascinated by this little guy jumping around your shirt there.
So we currently have 8, 2 populations. One is something of a rescue population. They're about 7 years old. They were not in what I call the best shape, having lived so long in a fairly small environment. It's really important to give captive animals a really rich, enriched environment with diverse landscapes and ample water and opportunities to really feel like they're in a natural setting, right? So that's what we've tried to do here. And we have another population which was bred elsewhere in Florida and brought into Canada, and where it's legal to possess these toads. And essentially, with these 2 populations, we've got the basis for some exciting genomic research.
Mm-hmm.
So for some background there, I guess I am the founder of a company that provides genomic analysis, mainly based for plants. And we assemble reference genomes, these genome assemblies for species. We provide authentication genomics. We provide research into population genomics, so that is understanding the diversity of species. So I've got this wonderful team of PhD scientists, brilliant people surrounding me, and as I returned, let's say, to my interest in toads, they came up in conversation from time to time with these scientists, and they immediately agreed. In fact, it was my team that proposed that we focus in on these organisms. So their common name is the Sonoran desert toad, or the Colorado River toad.
Right.
And some people call it the toad of light. But you can imagine in the Sonoran desert, they need to pull in the water and eat as much as they can during that brief rainy season,
Right.
and then go underground, burrow, and just wait it out until the next rainy season.
Maintain that hydration.
So they bring down their metabolic rate until it's just like boom,
Right.
boom, or even slower. They almost. I've seen them in hibernation, and you almost think that they're dead.
Wow.
It's a suspended animation, but they come out when they hear the rains beating on the ground. That's their signal to come up out of the earth every year, and then they just go into a breeding and a feeding frenzy. And the young ones that are born, in midway through the rainy season, then have a couple of months to fatten up, eat as much as they can, and then, of course, at the end of the season, just hydrate. They suck in all that water, and they just look like these, some little footballs.
Kind of swollen and
all swollen up and just go underground.
Yeah. Amazing. And then endure the dry season.
Exactly, the hot, dry season. They don't want to be out there in the heat or in the dry. It's nature's highest known concentration of naturally occurring 5-MeO DMT, and a host of other compounds which seem to have an entourage effect. They work together to impart a certain experience when inhaled.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So typical in plants is you're lucky if you're getting 1%.
Right.
In this toad, the latest research shows that the toad secretions contain about 45%, up to 45%.
Wow.
So almost half pure 5-MeO DMT, and that's already considered the most potent psychedelic substance known to humankind.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
They're very potent creatures. Yeah. One has to wonder when they spend their 8 months underground if they're just meditating deeply and transcendently.
Right.
For 8 months at a time.
And producing this compound that is so transcendent to humans.
Brewing it for the year to come. Yeah.
Incredible.
Let's look at the way this toad secretion is being used. It's being used broadly by therapeutic programs, some more formal than others. There are some formal ones involving academics and professionals in different countries. And there are many informal ones. There's addiction treatment centers. So some are more like healing retreats where you sit on a mat beside the surf coming in. You lie down and have some drums playing, and you vaporize your toad. Other ones are more clinical, and but the point is that this toad secretion is extremely powerful. I mean, here's a paper I was reading recently out of the Netherlands. A single inhalation of vapor from dried toad secretion containing these compounds in a naturalistic setting is related to sustained enhancement of satisfaction with life, mindfulness-related capacities, and a decrement of psychopathological symptoms. That right there in the title.
Sustained satisfaction with life. I'm into that.
I'm into that
sounds
too.
like something that resonates with me.
It absolutely resonates with me.
And I think there's a lot of people looking for that sustained satisfaction of life right now.
Yes.
Because we've lost our way a little bit right now.
Yes, and let's discuss that, but also recognize that if everybody is relying on the toad for the sustained happiness, then the wild populations will come under extreme pressure, and so
100%.
It's up to the scientific community to investigate whether there are ways to produce this full spectrum medley of compounds which work together to produce this experience that takes the burden off the toad.
Right.
So that would be cell culture. Tissue culture with based on genomic research of what are called the biosynthetic pathways, which work through the gland to produce this secretion.
Right.
So there's something happening in the toad. Like, for example, right now, if somebody goes and squeezes a toad, it squeezes the gland gently, it will expel the secretion, which dries and becomes the medicine. And then in 4 to 6 weeks, the glands are full again. So what's happening in that time? What genes are activated? Well, if we can capture those genes in vitro,
right,
there's a good possibility that we'll be able to produce this full spectrum medicine.
And this whole area of psychedelic therapy is burgeoning. You see it all around the world. Different research, whether it's psilocybin, whether it's MDMA, whether it's toad medicine. You see it in a clinical aspect, like you're saying, in different universities. I did a quick Google this morning. I saw Yale's doing a study right now on DMT. There's the Netherlands-Canadian partnership. There's one in Switzerland. Like, it's really international, right?
Yes.
And then there's all sorts of retreat centers, particularly in Costa Rica and places like that are inviting people that aren't necessarily psychologically diagnosed with a condition, just to come and kind of upgrade their perspective about life and help them reach different insights maybe that they're missing. So I find it fascinating that it can be used for treatment-resistant depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse. And then there are very sort of high-level business people and people that generally wouldn't be looking for psychological treatment, going for this as a kind of an enhancement, a way to amplify their creativity, their innovation. Silicon Valley's super into all of this. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I kind of think of it like dreaming, or like even like sharpening your chainsaw. When you're working, like you need to do certain maintenance to keep your whole being, your spirit, your body, your mind fit and in a productive and healthy mode. So these alternative experiences, I mentioned dreaming. I mean, that's one where, can you imagine living without dreaming? It performs some necessary functions for health and state of mind, but it also just performs this alternative mode that allows us to then reflect upon it. It provides insights. It's just that it provides that counterbalance to this more kind of rigid state of mind that we spend most of our waking hours in. There's a saying that this toad medicine, and similar to other these compounds you mentioned, it compresses 15 years of psychotherapy into 15 minutes.
Right.
And it also it's a bit of a shortcut to what the transcendental meditation practices that might take a lifetime to master work towards. And this allows you to reach these states of mind. But actually, in the case of the toad medicine, it really is a uniquely powerful experience. I haven't experienced anything quite like it with any of these other traditionally compounds used in traditional indigenous spiritual practices, like the in Mexico I partook of in the highlands of Oaxaca some mushroom ceremonies that involved heaping plates of diverse species of psychoactive mushrooms in the Ucayali river basin of Peru. I spent several days deep in the jungle with the Shipibo people, partaking of ayahuasca ceremonies, and both of those impart an extremely profound and healthy healing experience.
How would you articulate what that brought to your life, your consciousness, your reflection? I know it's hard to articulate.
Yeah, well,
but how would you, for somebody that's never experienced the effects of these compounds, as I know there's a lot of fear around it, and yet there's a lot of potential need and potential, healing properties there. And I just wonder, I think it's a real mystery. You can read about it, but yeah, just what would be your take on what it's brought to your life?
These, I guess I'll just create some context and say that, with respect to the fear, these indigenous societies that have used these preparations for thousands of years have a very ritualized context, right, in a very safe environment. So there's an understanding that has a place in the culture, and there's safety measures built in around it. You sit in circles in safe environments, and there isn't the same fears associated. And in our society, we're just kind of coming to terms with how to integrate that, and it really isn't very much aligned with the culture that we've developed over the 20th and early 21st centuries. So it's taking some adaptation, and we're creating these systems, and there's a lot of work and research going into how to integrate psychedelics into therapeutic settings, and questions being asked like, is it going to be safe to just sell them on the shelf and let people take them home? I mean, a lot of us would think that having sweat lodge type or sauna based or meditation environments would be really productive, and I think that's more of where I come from. I think there could be a certification program that would enable people to then lead those sorts of ceremonies, and that might be one way that we could recognize that there are safe ways to experience the benefits. But my life was completely altered by my time just traveling and really becoming intimate with these experiences. And I guess I was given clarity. I was given clarity of purpose. I was given comfort with myself. It was a real coming of age. Even though I was about 30 years old, it was still just, there was a threshold that I passed through, and was able to come home and start a family, start a business, raise a family, and be a lot more at peace with where I was in life, where I was going, and I felt like I had more tools to bring to any table, essentially. And it comes very quickly. Like with this toad medicine, you essentially dissolve. Your ego completely dissolves. So whereas with ayahuasca or mushrooms, you enter an altered reality where maybe people around you all have vast and detailed auras, and you're in a sea of cosmic energy, and you've got multi-tentacled octopi descending from the cosmos and scanning you with rays, and could be very, very psychedelic in that visual and tactile sense. Whereas with the 5-MeO DMT and its entourage of compounds like perphotinine and a few others, maybe you just completely turn to dust, and a gust of wind comes and blows you away, and you're gone. So
you see, that description would probably scare a lot of Westerners.
yeah. Although you're not there to really be too afraid.
Yeah.
Once you're gone, you're gone, and then it's the slow, gradual, or fairly rapid. Time is irrelevant at this point. But there's that process of reintegration and repopulation, sort of cell by cell, and you're kind of poured back into yourself and come back into being. And as that's happening, your life flashes before your eyes. It's almost like you've experienced a death and are being reborn.
Wow.
But that rebirth experience comes with like just rapid processing of everything of importance. That was my experience in a flash, and then clarity on key points. And you come out thinking you've just unfurled some of these major mysteries of the universe. And then as you really come out, you start appreciating the sounds and the music and the hugs, and then you, wait a minute, what was that? And it's very easy to lose where you just were, what you just grasped, and yet at a subconscious level, it stays with you. And the important messages stay with you. And it's important then to meditate on it. Really just let your subconscious speak to you for a time after that, because what you've just experienced is profound. And yet there's no way to maintain consciousness of everything that just occurred once the experience is over.
I've heard that kind of the integration period, post experience is really key to kind of bring in that wisdom. Well, I've also been struck by, what I've read is how, and you speak to it now after however many years, you had that first experience, and those impacts are, still with you today, and you still enjoy those insights and that perspective about your life. And that, I think, is so powerful, is that you can have these experiences, and it's not like you need to do toad medicine or ayahuasca every week.
No.
These things are long lasting, and some of the literature is talking about people that haven't responded to any kind of antidepressants having a couple of psilocybin experiences, and then 6 to 12 months later still feeling so much more positive and healthy in their depression.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible. I think, Western culture is finally coming to terms with the beneficial influence of these compounds. I mean, nature has equipped us with so much that has been overlooked for so long by, Western society. So it's a special time, and partly I think it's the it's a generational change. The old guard was fairly resistant to the idea that all problems couldn't be solved with a purely technological fix, and now the generation that's coming into its own these days is really, I think, more open to nature providing some of the answers to the problems we have. And it's no secret that our society is coupled with a lot of mental illness. It's just epidemic. I mean, we see the difficult times in the past 2 years having resulted in such high mortality rates from mental illness and addiction.
Right.
Now is the time.
Really exciting for your team. I think it's really exciting for Salt Spring Island to have this here, and really the world in its present need for healing, psychological disorders or not. I think being able to provide this perspective and this mind-opening reality down the road for people.
Thank you, John. I couldn't agree more. And these toads are such wonderful, curious, remarkable little creatures. They love crickets and worms, and they've got this way of, of course, they flash out their tongue and grab it and stuff it into their mouth. Sometimes they've got 7 or 8 worms all going in at the same time, and then they swallow, and their eyeballs kind of suck into their heads. And actually, what's happening is their eyeballs work like muscles to push the food down their throat. That's why they get sucked in. Right. As they swallow, they sort of punch the food back from the inside.
From their inside of their eyeballs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because their eyes are so big. I mean, can you imagine like the ratio of eyeball to head? I mean, if we had the same size eyeballs, they'd be coming off it'd be like big earmuffs on our head. So they've got these big things, and it's just how they swallow. They retract and push the food back.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. And it's interesting now to consider whether this medley of compounds was purely coincidental that it came out with 5-MeO-DMT and this entourage of active compounds, because it is extremely poisonous in its in its raw form. As we've been talking here, this guy's been shedding some of his skin. And that's what they do. They shed it, they eat it, because they don't want to leave traces for predators. And then what he's doing is he's thinning the cover on his glands, because he's in the hands of a big mammal. Now, so he wants to be ready to expel some of that poison at me. As cute as he is.
So if he felt that you were attacking him, does he like spit it at you? Or
it just
what's the
shoots out of port. It's essentially any time that a predator is going to eat him, he's going to get a good squeeze, whether it's in the jaws or in the paws. And it's when that squeeze comes on that his that pores just open up and just shoot it out, and it can shoot 2 feet, so it'll shoot right to the back of your throat, and of a predator, for example, and is then swallowed, and that causes death.
So it has to go inside the mouth of a predator. Like if it's just on the predator's skin, will it go?
I think it would be dangerous, if it got on its hands or its forepaws and got in its mouth, got in its eyes. I mean, I'm not a toxicologist, but it's extremely potent stuff. It's known to cause paralysis or death in large dogs.
Wow.
Raccoons, apparently in some areas of its range, have learned to flip it over and eat it from its belly to stay away from that.
Right.
But it's
and for human consumption, if it's consumed when it's in its pure excreted form, that's dangerous too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we should address the fact that this whole myth of licking toads is, I mean, that, I don't know where that started, but it's
The Simpsons certainly
yeah,
popularized.
but it's extremely dangerous. You wouldn't want to ever lick a toad. It's got a death wish if you're licking toads.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. I was gonna grab them from you.
No. So these toads, you know, I mean, essentially, these toads have been squeezed once. There's been one harvest, and all of that medicine was sent to the lab for research. And so I'm sort of looking forward to that 4 to 6 week period as a recharge, because it would be nice to hold a ceremony. I've experienced the toad medicine before, but these, I thought it would be interesting to have this analysis conducted first, and then to understand, well, which of these toads is producing the highest levels of potencies?
Right.
Which of these toads might make good breeding partners? There's going to be a lot of questions answered by this analysis. Maybe do the older toads produce more or less of the active compounds, and is that because they're a distinct population, or is it because they are older?
Right.
We're going to find out if the second squeeze, because you can squeeze them again after an hour, they kind of refill, you squeeze them again, is that the same potency?
So is there a reference genome already in existence?
Not for the toad.
For the toad?
Yeah.
I mean, this will be the first?
Absolutely. By conducting this interview, if word gets out, there maybe some others will step up and race us to it, and that's fine. We encourage that.
Yeah.
But so far, this is one of the many species for which no reference genome is on the public record.
Wow. Very exciting. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So we'll contribute it to science, and we'll make it widely available,
right,
and encourage all and everyone to use it to research the species, because the primary research, that will come out of it will be an understanding of the diversity and conservation status of the species. It's exciting to be in the field of genomics, because what we do is we conduct genomic analysis, and all fields of biotech and all fields of that rely upon genomic insights, which increasingly is present in just about every industry that uses natural products of any kind. It relies on analytics. You can't really carry out a plan without analyzing the script. And if you just generate a bunch of genomic data, it doesn't make any sense until you analyze it. And to analyze it, you need these genome assemblies, these reference genomes. So we're doing this basic fundamental research to really start understanding the story of this fabulous creature.
I love that too, and you're understanding the story in a way that I think is a lot more palatable to certain people that are a little bit more fearful, a little bit more anxious, or just like to have the science backing up the decisions they make. There's lots of people that will talk about the experiences of toad medicine and ayahuasca, and then there are people that can really benefit from it, but don't want to venture there until the science is providing some level of verification, certainty, kind of understanding. So I think that's a really great byproduct of this too.
And standardization. Standardization of the optimize the pipeline for the biosynthesis,
right,
which is the production essentially, and the genetic recipe that goes into the petri dish to produce the secretion. It's that you get a standardized product every time,
right,
because that then people know what. Then it's possible to document what is being consumed.
Yeah.
And it's a standardized product. It's when there's this wild variation that it becomes a bit questionable. For example, if I were to take two samples, one from the old toads, one from the young toads, I would have no idea until this analysis was performed whether the medicinal compounds were vastly different, more potent in one than the other. So essentially, removing some of the fear of the unknown is a big part of what we're doing as well.
Definitely gives clinicians an easier time, prescribing, supporting, and having confidence that they're going to be helping their patients and not giving them a massive dose unknowingly because one's stronger than the other, right?
Yes, that's right.
What rings for me is the study that I had a look at this morning. I think it was the Yale study, and they were hypothesizing basically that treatment using this medicine allows for a neuroplasticity in the brain. So it allows for potentially our neurons, to change the way they're wired together.
Yes.
And I guess that's saying what fires together wires together.
Amazing.
So providing an opportunity for that kind of level of biological healing to take place.
I love that saying. I'd never heard that before. What fires together, wires together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's really, in line with what's being found with, like, if you apparently consume psilocybin and lion's mane,
right?
So Hericium erinaceus, the lion's mane mushroom together, that's extremely potent for neurogenesis, the regrowth of the neural network. And but certainly, as you experience these altered states, your brain is obviously firing in a completely new way. So it will alter, and a lot of the indigenous traditions worked it in with the cycles of the year. So there would be repeated, maybe it would be 4 times per year that there would be an ayahuasca ceremony, for example. So I think that regularity would maintain a structure of the mind, which is unique.
It's so cool because that whole neuroplasticity is greatest when we're young, of course. When our brain is still evolving and then still creating those neuronal connections, and then we go into our old age and we move into our 40s. I think that's the decade I'm in, and we get a little stuck in our ways. We get a little bit less curious, a little bit more been there, done that. Don't want to hear about that. So the fact that this medicine can potentially allow us to open ourselves, to be more curious, to rewire these insecurities. I mean, incredible, right?
To be reborn. That really is, it really is the experience of rebirth. As you're just poured back into yourself, you come from nowhere. Mm-hmm. You really feel like you've just disappeared, then you repopulate your body, and it's a fresh start. You come back feeling inspired, feeling enthused, feeling grateful for the miracle of life.
Sounds like a midlife crisis cure.
Oh, absolutely. Panacea, cure for all ills. It's not snake oil, it's toad poison.
You're right.
Well, no, but there's a lot of truth to it, right? There's a kernel of truth in the jest. There's a lot of our myriad problems that we face in life, the challenges we face, come from the perspective, the view, the lens through which we approach those challenges, and the way we characterize those problems and the stories we tell ourselves. And we can just rewrite that script, then we can address a lot of these problems.
Amazing. So appreciate your time today, Tim.
Such a pleasure.
I feel like we've moved from the science to the sort of higher level psychological benefits, and really appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate the explanation. I know people are going to get a kick out of seeing these incredible creatures and the benefits they're providing humanity. So thanks so much, man.
Wow. Well, thank you for your curiosity and for the great stimulating conversation. It's always such a pleasure, Jai. And I love what you're doing with Salt Spring Life, and you're really bringing life to so much of what's happening here on Salt Spring. So
thanks a lot, man. Yeah, great.
Right on.